The Black Land. Egyptian civilization would not have developed without the Nile River. The ancient Egyptians' name for their land was Kemet, the Black Land, because of the rich black mud left on the river banks after the midsummer floods receded. The soil in the Nile River Valley was very fertile for farming. The River Delta. The Nile is the longest river in the world. The Nile flows northward from Central Africa for 4,150 miles before emptying into the Mediterranean Sea. The triangle where the river meets the sea is known as the Nile Delta. The area around the delta was known as Lower Egypt. The area to the south was called Upper Egypt. Every year, from July to October, rain caused the Nile to flood and leave muddy soil behind. In this rich soil, farmers grew fruits and vegetables. The river supplied water for pastures where farmers raised animals. A plant called papyrus grew in the river's marshes and was used to make paper. Papyrus stalks were used to build river boats for fishing. The boats sailed the Nile, allowing Egyptians to trade with neighboring peoples. Most of Egypt's land is desert. The area around the Nile, known as the Delta, was excellent for growing crops. The Red Land. Only the very narrow strip on each side of the Nile River was suitable for farming. Land beyond the river banks was scorching desert known as the Red Lands. The Red Lands were a source of copper, gold, and other minerals used to make jewelry and tools. The Pharaoh and the River. Egyptians believed their pharaoh controlled the weather and the Nile. They thought he was the only god who could please Hapi, the flood god, and guarantee a supply of water for growing crops. Without the flood, there would be a famine. The ancient Egyptians farmed the banks of the Nile just as they are farmed today. The Egyptian seasons. There were 3 seasons each year in ancient Egypt. The flood season, from July to October, was called Aket. Farmers could not grow food during Aket because fields were flooded. Instead, they fixed tools and prepared for Peret, the season when the waters receded and the crops could be planted. During Shamuth, from March to June, farmers worked very long hours harvesting crops. The Nile was home to many kinds of wildlife. When the waters rose too high to farm, Egyptians, like this wealthy family, hunted wild birds.